Gok. Hi, Dolly.
Hello.
Oh, welcome to the Happy Place Festival.
Thank you very much. Do you know what? It's really odd because I was very looking forward to being actually at the festival physically, but I think actually this is a really good second. I think this is a good alternative.
Yeah, we're excited about it. There's lots of really interesting discussions going on, and it's a really nice way of doing it. And I think I've definitely felt a sense of community, even though I haven't seen all the brilliant people that I've spoken to in real life. It's definitely still got that spirit and an energy about it. So I'm really glad.
And how long is the festival running for, Fearne?
So it's running for a month, and
there's a long time. It's a lot of well-being.
Yeah, it's a lot of well-being. There's all different sorts of classes going on each day, and workshops and talks and whatnot. And then they all live on the festival site, so you can go back and watch any of them whenever. So there's just tons of things to explore, learn about, and try out. And I really wanted to have a chat with you today about something that we're equally as invested in, but I think sometimes in different ways, because we're very similar. We're both Virgos. Our stars sit directly in Virgo, and we are perfectionists, correct?
Correct. Like more so than ever, the older I get. Now I'm 32.
Now you're 32, so old.
32. So yeah, the more so, definitely massive perfectionist and a real stickler for detail. That's getting worse, actually.
It's getting worse, wow.
The detail has got to be there. And it doesn't matter how small the project, how small the task, it's all about the detail.
And also the fact that we're lucky that we really, really like our jobs a lot. And I know that you feel the same. We're both very lucky we like it, but often we do too much of it. We get slightly engrossed in, what we can create because that feeling is so nice. Yeah. And the thing that we've agreed to talk about today is distractions, which could, distractions is an interesting word because you can look at it in a really positive way or a really negative way, whichever way you decide. So we should unpick it today. So you are someone that is perhaps a self-professed distractionaholic, would you say?
Distractionaholic, distractor, I would say.
Distractor.
I think it sounds slightly more Transformers to be
I like that.
It makes me feel quite butch in one word. I'm really good at it. It's one of my skills. And I suppose my theory is it's not a bad thing in my mind. And I think when we're younger, we are constantly told, with the kids, you're constantly telling the kids to keep focused, don't get distracted, keep at it. But when I was younger, it was one of the ways that I achieved more. And I think I've turned it into a skill as I've got older because my mind goes a million miles per hour. And like you've said, I'm a complete workaholic. I'm a complete perfectionist. I'm all about the detail. And so I'm never happy. I'm never truly satisfied with what I do. And for a long time, I beat myself up about that because I just felt like I needed to achieve more. I felt like I needed to do more. And I became my own worst enemy, and it affected relationships and friendships and, relationships with colleagues and stuff because I was constantly striving to be better. And of course, sometimes when people turn around to you and say, that was amazing, or, that was great, you just choose to not believe them because you are still beating yourself up about it. But when we're younger, that's kind of what we're taught to do. We're taught that actually we can always do better. We're taught we always need to focus more. We're taught we're not allowed to have distraction, that we've got to keep on the job in hand, that actually time is for play here, and time is for learning here, and time is for thinking here. But actually our brains don't work like that, I don't think. The brain is so active. And, research shows that we only use a small percentage of our brain. The rest of it we don't understand. We've got no idea at all how it works. And I suppose for me, when I'm distracting myself, and notably distracting myself, taking myself away from something. And it's never really to stop thinking about what I have to think about. It's more, it gives me, my brain, a break to breathe. And so I can be, working on something, writing something, designing something. And then what I'll do is I will physically take myself away and bake a cake, or go for a walk, or I will call a friend, or I will go for a drink, or go for dinner. Now, just because I'm out for dinner or having a drink with friends doesn't mean my brain isn't still going, isn't still working. And actually, often those situations give me an opportunity to really fight with those ideas, because I might ask them their opinion. I might discuss what's in my brain. So that's what I mean about distraction for me, is a really clever tool. Not only make myself better, but also to give myself a bit of a break, to stop putting so much pressure on myself. Because if I ever, and I'll tell you a story in a second, but if I ever sit and have to really focus on something, I'm not going to do it. I'm never going to do it. I'm never going to do it properly.
So for you to feel content, I'm going to use that word, for you to feel content, you want to be multi-skilling and brainstorming multiple ideas at the same time to keep yourself engaged with each one individually. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. But I don't want to just work on one project. I don't want to just have one feeling. I don't just want to feel love. I also want to feel fear at the same time, because I think that what that happens is that when you're feeling the love or you're feeling the fear, to feel opposite emotions at the same time allow you to really embrace the one emotion that you're locked into. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, totally. You've got something to compare it to.
It's taken me years to work this out, which is the oddest thing. It's taken me so long, because for a long time I thought that I was just distracted because it was a negative thing. And for a long time I thought that I dropped out of school. I managed to stay at college, but then I dropped out of university. I had multiple jobs when I was younger, and I couldn't hold a job down because my brain was just going way too fast for the job at hand. And it wasn't until I got slightly older and I said, actually, I'm not going to allow myself to go through this pressure any longer. I'm going to go with my distraction. I'm going to go with my brain moving that quickly. And it's not my fault that my world can't keep up with my brain. It's the world that has to keep up with me. Do you see what I mean? And so...
Is there any element of your distraction, like say you are working on a work project and then you need to take yourself away from it because you don't want to just focus on that? I know that you might feel relaxed baking or whatever, or doing something, but do you ever feel like, because I'm saying this from personal experience, do you ever feel like you're just doing another thing because you're actually scared to stop? Like, what does stopping mean? How will that make you feel? What's going to come up? You know, is there an element of fear in just stopping?
Yeah, probably. I hadn't thought about it, but thank you, Fearne, for my brand new anxiety. I really appreciate that. Do you know what? I don't have a fear of things stopping, actually. I have to say, I'm quite good with closure. I'm quite good with moving.
But not even like, because I would never doubt your capabilities or career, not even a sense of your career stopping, but just of you stopping, even if it was for like a day, a week, of you just not continuing that momentum. Because I know for you and I, we both want to keep a momentum up, keep things fresh and people engaged and excited, and you to feel excited. Are you scared about just stopping that momentum?
It's never happened. I've never ever actually stopped. I think, I'm in all truthness, in all truthness, is that a word? In all honesty.
It is now.
It is now. In all honesty, I'm 46 this year. And so I haven't managed to stop up until now. And I think that my need to keep on going, I understand it. I understand why I do that. It's about validation. It's about feeling loved. It's about feeling needed. And also as well, I think you and I have a very similar personality, whereas we are very servile. And we want to care for something, we want to care for people, and we have to feel that we're creating something that people can exist in. So whether that is a happy place, or whether that's a TV program, or whether that's a home, or whether that's a friendship group, constantly having to feed into those things. Now, so for me, my life has never stopped, because a TV contract may finish after filming for 8 months, but as soon as that's finished, I'm jumping into my social group and creating events and stuff to do. And so I'm constantly trying to provide. And I don't think that's necessarily a wrong thing. Many journalists ask me what I do for a living, because I cook and I DJ and I do fashion and I write and I design. I do so many different things. And I always say to them, I'm a waiter, basically. I see myself as a really good waiter. And it just depends what's on my tray. It changes daily. It might be shoes one day. It might be a book another day. It might be baking another day. It just changes. But essentially, what I do is I go from the kitchen to the service, and that's what I do. That is my job, and I'm really happy with that, and I'm really comfortable with that. But when I was younger, it was a fear. It was a fear that actually my tray was always going to be empty, that there was going to be nothing on there. I was going through the motions, and I was physically doing it, but the tray was empty. But as I've got older, I've learnt the skill of really, really understanding what I'm putting on the tray. Actually, sometimes it can only be one thing at a time, but actually sometimes you can have lots of things.
I really relate to the aspect of you feeling like your work validates an aspect of who you are, because I certainly feel that, and I'm not looking for exterior applause or a celebration, but I do feel like when I've created something, it's that sense of purpose, like, oh, I get what I'm about, and it does sort of perhaps boost elements of me that feel weaker, you know, my insecurities, the propensity to self-loathe, stuff like that. And sometimes when there are gaps, like certainly when I guess I have my kids, or when I have been, you know, at sort of a crossroads in my career and there's been less distraction, I have had to sit with some of that comes up, because you can't mask those feelings that you don't necessarily want to feel with that validation of, oh, I'm still creating, so I can sort of ignore that over there, or it puts a bit of a plaster on it. How would you feel if you were to stop and allow any of those fears or anxieties or perhaps historic thought patterns to come up? You know, how would that make you feel?
Well, they do come up, and they come up probably, I would say, daily.
Really?
Honest. Yeah, I mean, I often will wake up and I do a little thing. I think I told you about it before, but I smile for the first 60 seconds of my day on my own in bed, and I look ridiculous. But I lay there and I make myself smile, because I've got this theory that if we do that, we release the serotonin in our brain and we start our day better. But it depends on how strong that smile is, I suppose. And
it's a little meditation, essentially.
Exactly what it is. It's just time to think.
Yeah.
But those the fears and the anxieties and that stuff creeps in constantly every single day. And some days I'm strong enough to bat it away and say, don't stop. You know, you've got a lot to do today. Get on with it. You haven't got time to feel this way. And some days I'm not strong enough, and I have to allow them to take over. And then at which point, then I have the tools in place to be able to deal with them. And they come with a checklist. And so my first thing is feeling grateful. So I go through a list of things that I'm grateful for. The second thing is, if that doesn't work, and I mentally do this, right? And then what I'll do is I'll think about all the successes I've had, friendships, my family, relationships, stuff that I know that I feel good about myself. And then if that doesn't work, I'll then go into, what do I want to achieve and what am I capable of? And so, but that's something that comes with age, I think, and it's something that you have to put in place. And I am so far away from my happy place. I am absolutely the furthest away.
In what sense? In the sense of contentment, life, career, everything. What's?
I think all of it. I think all of it. I think I can do better. I mean, we're going back to the original, the beginning of this conversation. I feel I can be better at so much more than I do.
So do you believe that will make you happier?
Yes, I think it does. I'm afraid of being happy. Oh my God, this is deep now. I'm genuinely afraid of being happy, because I think the moment that I'm happy, that means I will stop trying. And I will lose a massive part of my identity, a massive part of who I am. That person that tries too hard, that person that has to achieve.
Wouldn't that be liberating?
No, I don't think so, actually. And I'm quite happy with that. I've grown up to quite like the person I am. And I don't want that to sound arrogant.
It does not. We should all endeavour to like ourselves.
Absolutely. But I think that when without harking on too much about it, but when you come from a world where you really dislike yourself, there's not a single thing. I had a really interesting conversation last week. I was just finished filming a project, and we were talking about skin, bizarrely. And I had terrible acne when I was younger. And I remember this thought, Fearne, which is so dark and so twisted, but I was about 12 years old, so very vulnerable, developing into a young adult. I just formed my sense of taste. I just formed my sense of who I am as a person. And I remember thinking to myself, right, so you have terrible acne, you are morbidly obese, and you're gay. Which would you live with for the rest of your life if you could get rid of the other two? And I decided that I would get rid of the bad skin. And it wasn't until I was older, probably in my 30s, that I thought about this. And I put it away, put it in an envelope, put it in my brain away. And I suddenly thought to myself, for a 12-year-old to dislike themselves so much that you actually gave yourself a choice to get rid of one of your hates so much, for me, it was quite dark to realise that in my 30s. Yeah. Darker than feeling it at 12 years old.
Bet. Well, you've got the emotional intelligence to think, well, what did that mean for me at the time? And it is sad. And do you feel, because I can look back at my teenage self, I mean, like a lot of people, I guess, and think, oh my God, bless you, you poor little thing. There was so many things there that were kind of,
photos, man.
Oh, I've got the photos are on the bloody internet, unfortunately. And I know there was bits of myself that I really didn't like them, but unfortunately, there's still that teenager in there that I sometimes battle with, and that's perhaps where the validation comes in for me too, because I'm still trying to not be that really overly enthusiastic, bubbly, naive person. I've tried to rally against that by being, by reading tons and by, writing and by,
But aren't they all things
of life?
But aren't they all things, Fearne, that you have found, all those tools that you found to do exactly the same as what, the checklist that I go through when I have a bad day? They're all things that we put in place to make sure that we form a wall around our anxiety, to turn around to say...
Yeah, but I think part of me has got to a place now where I'm quite comfortable experiencing the discomfort of those feelings, whether it be insecurity or concern about my abilities or self-loathing in the extreme. And rather than, sometimes I will just, do loads of stuff and distract myself, but other times I will look at it and think, what is the root of that? Why, is it serving me anymore to hold on to that narrative that there's something wrong with me or I'm flawed? Because, even looking at how you felt about yourself as a teenager, you deemed 3 aspects of your being to be wrong or flawed, and they're absolutely not. None of those things make you any less wonderful than any other human. That is, and also it's just the language we use, I guess, and how we think of ourselves, and we've all got that. We can look at our history and think, I made that mistake, or I was this sort of person, or I had shit hair, or whatever it is. But they're not actually, they're sort of meaningless in a sense, like they're not negatives unless we tell ourselves they are.
Absolutely, which takes me back to finding that happy place and being afraid of being happy, because, from that self-loathing as a teenager that went into my very early adult life, but now at my age, and like I said, I'm far from my happy place, but I'm kind of all right with that, because the constant search to be happy when I was younger was all-consuming. And it was painful at times because I didn't feel I would ever achieve it. And I was constantly looking for things to fill that happy void that, I was lacking that sense of feeling good about myself. It's as simple as that. And as I've got older now, those demons have kind of been, they've become the tools that make me happy. The fact that I know that I need to work really hard, and I know that I shouldn't work so hard, but actually I need to, so I'm fine with that. The fact that I want to look after people, the fact that I'm not going to feel that putting everything forward and before myself, I'm not going to feel guilty about that anymore, because I felt guilty about that for a long time, because I thought that I was trying to cover up my anxieties and my fears. Actually not. I just want to do my job. I just want to look after. Do you see what I mean? And so as I've got older, all the stuff that I beat myself up about has become the positive. But that positive doesn't necessarily mean I found my happy place. It means that I am now comfortable with not saying that I've achieved it yet, because I'm going to work harder to do it, because that's what makes me happy.
Well, controversially, I think you've found your happy place, because hear me out.
Don't say it.
No, hear me out. That's like your worst nightmare. But the word happy, which obviously I named my first book Happy, and the phrase happy place, they're both really loaded, which is why I like them and why I've used them, because they can be quite controversial in a sense. Because this whole thing is happy place, the festival, the books, the podcast, whatever. But I don't believe that is a future destination ever. I don't believe that that's somewhere that I can head to or somewhere that I will land at all. But it's not because I'm scared of it. Happiness isn't a fixed state. And God, how annoying would it be to be happy all the time? You wouldn't value anything, and you would sort of just float through life without feeling and meaning. So for me, it is that sort of transient thing where, you know, it's going to spontaneously, you might have, your happy place might last for a minute tomorrow, it might be a month, you know, in the future, or it might be, you know, you might have it 10 times throughout the day. I think sometimes we do think, oh, when I get that job, or once I've achieved X, Y, Z, once I've got the perfect partner, once I've got the best friends in the world, I will reach this state of bliss and happiness. And I sort of don't believe it. And I think, you know, obviously it's human desire to always desire more anyway, but I just think it's just not a destination, which can sound a bit depressing, but I do think that you're nailing it because you've got acceptance. And for me, that's more important than anything. You know, we place all this importance on happiness over sadness or anger or whatever. I think they're all equal in value, but I think acceptance is probably the coolest thing that you can have, because you're aware of who you are, what you're about, what works for you, what doesn't, but you're also allowing space to be curious as to what else might happen or interest you. So I don't think that happy place is in the future for you. I just think you're living it.
Yeah, do you know what? It's so hard to hear someone say that in a very odd way. It's almost slightly embarrassing. That's the kind of feeling that I've got right now. Oh my God, I don't think I'm happy. This is weird. But I hear everything you're saying, and it feels very fresh, and it feels very lovely to hear that. I think this, one of the keys maybe to finding the road to happiness. So I agree with you. I don't think, you know, there isn't a wizard in the castle, and it doesn't matter who you meet on that yellow brick road. There is no wizard there. That's in my mind. And it's the journey to get there. It's the amazing, it's the scarecrow, the tin man, and everybody else that you're going to meet on the way to finding that wizard, for me, is the most important part. So that's what I'm trying to get at. And I'm in that place right now. I'm halfway up the yellow brick road, and I'm having the best time ever. I am enjoying the experiences and the extremes. I'm enjoying the exhaustion, and weirdly, I also enjoy the fights as well when I'm not too exhausted. And what I'm trying to, but I think one of the keys to understanding that path is about you knowing that every single moment of your day and every single day that you live, you will feel differently about this. Your opinion will change, and you know, because basically it's like fighting politics with yourself. You know, you sit on one bench believing in something so powerful and you're going to fight for, and then the next day you wake up and you want to go to the opposition.
Yeah, this is why I hate doing press interviews, because I'll read something from like a month ago, I go, oh my God, I don't believe in that. Why did I say that? Because our minds change.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that if you allow yourself, if you're gracious enough with yourself to say, actually, I'm going to let my opinion change, I'm going to let my feelings change here, then I think that takes off a massive amount of pressure. And
hugely.
Pressure is something about distraction that I think is really important. And this comes from somebody, I mean, you know me, Fearne, you've seen me at my lowest and you've seen me at my highest. And for me, it always comes down to one thing. My biggest demon in the world is guilt. And the guilt comes from pressure. And so if I manage to control those two, regardless of whether I am happy, like textbook happy here, or whether I am feeling anxiety there, it doesn't matter as long as I'm controlling the two elements that force me in those opposite directions. Does that make any sense?
So where is the guilt stemming from? Is it guilt that is it always about having not achieved enough? Is that the guilt?
So I literally have a smorgasbord of guilt. I feel I can make all of my anxiety is based on stuff that I've possibly done wrong, or that I've upset someone, that I could have, not necessarily could I have done better. Mine is slightly below that. Mine is a layer of emotion below that, which is I am constantly worried that I've pissed someone off, that somebody's upset with me, somebody doesn't like me, that
I feel that. I get this a lot.
All of those. And for a long time, I had no idea at all how to manage that. And so I tried drugs to manage it. So I got prescription drugs and beta blockers. And they kind of worked instantly. And I had a nice little sensation, but that was all psychosomatic because I know I'd taken this drug and it was going to calm me down and my heart was going to go slower and all that stuff. But actually, it was never, ever going to take away the essence of what was going on. And so for me to control that was just to take the pressure off, was to understand that actually I'm allowed to be on the yellow brick road. I don't have to get to the castle. If I don't meet the wizard, it doesn't matter, because all these people that I'm meeting along the way is fine. That if I don't see my goddaughter, and I haven't seen her for so long. It's fine because I'm going to see her. And when I see her, it'll be amazing.
She talks about you all the time, by the way.
You know, I adore and love her.
Honey, every morning, like, how's Auntie Gok? I'll leave a video for Auntie Gok.
Don't see that the guilt comes in, like nervous guilt. It comes in. Not just here. I'm not going to show everyone. On my mantelpiece, she's up there. But so what I'm getting at is the idea of distraction in my mind is such a clever tool, because when I'm distracted, it allows me to take the pressure off of what I'm doing. So it allows me to understand that, in fact, if I don't really achieve at this, it's okay. I'll probably get another opportunity. Do you see what I mean?
I get that. You know what? I really understand it now, because, you know, we talk a lot and we speak a lot on text and voice note, and you know that you're always doing a million things and have so many fingers in pies. And I have always wondered, like, what is the root of that for you? And I really get it. I really understand it. And I can really tap into that feeling of like, oh my God, did I say something awful to that person? Or did something that I did like one of my actions trigger something awful? Like, I constantly worry about that. So I really get where you're coming from. I think it's a really, you know, we all build our coping mechanisms, and you've done it very successfully in having acceptance around this works for you. And of course, there is never a wrong or right unless it's causing destruction to yourself or others. You know, you're doing something that's purely positive and creative, and it works. So I think, you know, that's really empowering, and it's really interesting to hear, and it's probably helped me understand myself a bit better in doing so. So thank you so much for, once again, you know, we've been lucky enough to do this a few times now, for your wisdom and for your willingness to be vulnerable and to talk about stuff like this. I really, really appreciate it.
No, Fearne, stop it. Look, literally, tear. There's a tear.
Oh, I love you.
You can see that. She just made me well up. Like, I'm so hormonal. Look at me. I hate you for that. I wish you the biggest amount of success with Happy Place. And just, I mean, I've said this to you before. Actually, Fearne, I'm going to give you a little bit now. And if you cut this out, if you edit what I'm about to say, James, William, if you do that, I will never, ever do this again. So
the producers are now trembling in their boots. Right, go on.
You, Fearne, need to be so proud. And I've told you this before, and you back this away every time I tell you, that you have created something so valuable and so useful. And you have created not just a happy place, but a safe place. And I've done so many interviews over the years, because I am so popular, Fearne. But I've done so many interviews over the years, and none of them have ever got the traction and the response of that first podcast that we did. And you created that. And do you know how powerful that is? I mean, that's key worker ability, to go out there and to touch so many people and give them somewhere that they can genuinely question their thoughts without feeling a bit crazy. And they're allowed to talk about their mental health. You know, you've done that.
I feel lucky to do it.
You need to be proud. And look, you look away and you can't take it and you hate it.
It's awkward. It's so awkward.
It's so awkward. But do you know what? You've just done the same thing to me, bitch. So you're going to take it back. You just understand how important this is. And it's not just a conversation with a load of your mates that are willing to open up to you. You have done this, and you need to be very proud of yourself, because you're helping millions of people.
Thank you so much. Honestly, that really means a lot coming from you. And I will cherish those words. Thank you so much, my darling. I love you.
I love you. And can you give my goddaughter the biggest kiss?
I will.
When all of this is over,
right now,
we're going shopping.
Oh, she will love that. She will love that. She's all about bags at the moment, so you can go bag shopping.
Well, you know that I've left. Well, when that day happens, which, you know, whenever that is, that Honey gets my entire handbag collection.
I mean,
I told you
that is. I know. I mean, it's mind blowing.
I mean, forget the house. I mean, forget the car. Forget the dog.
The bags.
I mean, the handbag collection.
Supposing that I outlive you, I will be borrowing the Chanel clutch bag that you've got.
You can have that one now if you like.
Oh my God, okay.
I didn't mean that. This is not my happy place. You've taken me out of my happy place. It's all a lie.
I knew there was absolutely no genuine No, nothing genuine about that answer. That is your most precious thing. Look, thank you, my darling. We'll speak soon.
Back with the festival, and everyone enjoy the festival and stay positive and stay sane if you can. If not, enjoy the party.